Hey guys, welcome to my very excessive March TBR. If you guys have been part of BookTube for a decent amount of time, you'll probably heard of Middle Grade March. There's a bunch of lovely ladies who put on this like readathon kind of thing all month. I will leave them all linked below and the Middle Grade March channel. So I'm going to be reading a bunch of middle grade, but I have some other books that I need to prioritize, and then I have a bunch of books I want to get to. So we're going to start with the books that I need to read and then go on to like my pile of possibilities. So there's a few different reading challenges that I'm doing this year, one of which is my own Read Your Bookshelf challenge, and I don't think I have a book picked out for that because I am doing the challenge in a way this year that at this point a person's either on the L.M. Montgomery side or the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle side. I'm with Lucy Maud Montgomery, so in the month of March, that means I need to be reading a book with two perspectives, 2 points of view, and then Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's is more than two. And I'm not aware that any of the books I have picked out have two perspectives, so maybe do I just need to look and pick one now? Yeah, okay, I'm gonna pause this because I can't just hope that I get one because otherwise I'm gonna be in trouble. I'm going to pause, see if I can find a book that I really want to read that has 2 points of view. Okay, we're gonna do that. Okay, so I found one. It took me a while. My method for this, because it's quite hard to tell, my method for this was to look at the beginning of chapters. Usually, if it has multiple perspectives, it will say like the character's name at the top. That's one way to tell without either reading the entire back, which you can't always tell who you're going to be, whose mind you're through in the back. So anyway, this one is The Lines Between Us by Amy Lynn Green. So this is historical fiction, which also historical fiction is either dual perspectives or multiple as well, or like more. When I say multiple, generally I'm thinking like more than two. Anyway, two perspectives. So this one we follow Gordon and Dory. So I did try a chapter for this in January for my Patreon, and it starts out, the first, I think it's the prologue, is letters back and forth between Gordon and Dory. So Dory, I think World War II is just about to start when they start their letters, and Gordon is, why am I blanking? He's a pacifist, and Dory, like they were just about to maybe start a relationship. Dory's very disappointed in him, so she's like, don't write me again. And I'm so very curious to see where this book goes. So currently I think I've read 2 of Amy Lynn Green's books, loved one, was very disappointed in the other. So hopefully this will be another one that I love. Another thing I'm doing this year is I'm reading an Agatha Christie each month for my Patreon. I'm doing a separate video for them, kind of sharing my thoughts as I go through, and then we're going to be doing a discussion every 3 months. We're going to kind of discuss the books that we read. So for March we're reading The Man in the Brown Suit. So this is pretty young Anne came to London looking for adventure. In fact, adventure comes looking for her and finds her immediately at Hyde Park Corner tube station. Anne is present on the platform when a thin man reeking of mothballs loosens his balance and is electrocuted on the rails. The Scotland Yard verdict is accidental, but Anne is not satisfied. After all, who was the man in the brown suit who examined the body? And why did he race off, leaving a cryptic message behind? 17-122 Kilmorden Castle. Interesting. Yeah, so I don't really know anything about it other than what I just read, but Agatha Christie is always a fun read, so I'm looking forward to another one of hers. Then my patron of the month picked a historical fiction for us, and I was wondering if this one was going to be dual perspective, and I can't tell. I don't think so. This is another one I did try a chapter of, The Book of Lost Names, and so this one is also set kind of during World War II. We're definitely dual timeline because we're kind of present day and then also 1942. So present day, this elderly librarian finds a newspaper article where someone is looking to return this book, and it's her book. And so she's going to fly out to, where was this person? Are they in Germany? Are they in Poland? I don't remember where they were. She's gonna go fly out there and talk to this person, and I'm assuming the story will unfold. I've heard really good things about this book, so hopefully it lives up to the first chapter. The first chapter was really good. Then in March, the Buzzwordathon, which is put on by Books and Lala, her prompt was a character name in the title, and since it's middle grade March, I thought I would find a middle grade March book with a character name in the title, and I've been meaning to read this one forever. This is The Great Shelby Holmes, so this is like, you know, a middle grade spin on Sherlock Holmes. This is Shelby Holmes is not your average 6th grader. She's 9 years old, barely 4 feet tall, and the best detective her Harlem neighborhood has ever seen, using logic and a bit of pluck, which yes, some might call bossiness, to solve the toughest crimes. And then 11-year-old John Watson moves downstairs. So I hope it's cute. I do own book 1 and 2, so if I enjoy it, maybe I will continue on. Then I have a whole stack of nonfiction. I didn't really realize I was adding quite so many books, nonfiction books to my stack as I was going through, so I don't think I'll get to all of these, but I would like to. And the first one I'm definitely gonna get to. The other ones are like, if I have time. So I've got Tim Keller's Hope in Times of Fear, The Resurrection, and the Meaning of Easter. So I just shared this in my recent-ish book haul. The whole reason I placed an order from Book Outlet was because of this book. I read his Christmas one at Christmas and loved it. And then when I saw that he had an Easter one that was on Book Outlet, I was like, well, I know I need to read that. So it's a pretty small little book, like it's kind of shorter, smaller, although it doesn't have much for margins, but I feel like it should be a pretty quick read, and my plan is to read this before Easter. My other hopefuls in the nonfiction department are poems by C.S. Lewis, and this will be a pretty quick read because poetry, I mean, it's not as many words per page as it seems. I've never read any of C.S. Lewis's poetry to my knowledge, so I'm very curious about this one. Plus, I really love poetry, so I hope I love his. Then we have Letters to Malcolm. This is Chiefly on Prayer is the subtitle, and with having read the Screwtape Letters in February, this one seemed like a good follow-up. These are 22 letters between fictitious correspondents, and Lewis shares his understanding of the role of prayer in our lives and the ways in which we might better imagine our relationship with God. Oh, okay. So it is fiction, but kind of not also. So I'm very curious then. This is like the counterpart then maybe to the Screwtape Letters almost. I've actually not really heard much about it. I think when I came across this on Book Outlet later last year, or like mid last year when I saw it, that was the first time that I think I'd ever heard of it. This book I've been meaning to read for a while, but other books just keep pushing it off to the side. This Beautiful Truth, How God's Goodness Breaks into Our Darkness by Sarah Clarkson. Yeah, this one sounds really good. I can't remember if I put this on another TBR. Did I put it on January or February? We live in a broken world. Amid the daily realities of sickness and isolation, disappointment and pain, it can be profoundly difficult to grasp the real goodness of God. But this is where God breaks into our darkness with beauty. And that just sounds amazing. So I'd like to read this, although the C.S. Lewis books are like almost a little bit more of priorities because he is my kind of like literary mentor. He's the person that I'm trying to study for my DIY literature degree, and so I have a goal to read 3 of his books this year that I've never read before, so reading at least one of those would be helpful, but this one sounds really good. And then I have another poetry book, and if I don't get to this one this month, I feel like maybe this would be really good for like April, May, when it feels more spring here. I mean, March is technically spring, but it never feels quite like that here. This is the poetry of Lucy Maud Montgomery. The like worst cover of a book that I own, pretty much, but it's Lucy Maud Montgomery. I think, if I remember correctly, and don't quote me on this because I might not, I think she preferred writing poetry, did she? But she had to write novels to make the money? I don't know. Don't quote me on that. I will research and I'll report back. Although here it says, the poems were written to reach readers she thought of as kindred spirits. Those thousands of people who then, as now, would be as deeply moved as she was by beauty in nature and in spirit. It sounds amazing. She felt herself drenched with beauty. It was emotion that evokes heart-deep recognition in readers who will find an echo of their own yearnings and hungers for emotional outlet. Maud Montgomery was well aware that greatness as a poet was beyond her reach, but her verses were capable of putting into words what ordinary people felt and often could not explain. Yeah, I feel like Maud would have been a kindred spirit of mine. Her books sure are. Oh, this is an interesting fact. I'm getting distracted. Although her fame today rests on her novels, the first of which, Anne of Green Gables, was published in 1908, Maud's writing began with poems. In 1904, she earned $591.95 from her poems and short stories. In 1906, she made more than $700. That's a lot for the time. Yes, when I go for walks, I often feel like overwhelmed by the beauty that God has created, and so I love reading nature poetry. So even though it has a terrible cover, I'm excited to read this one. Then I went to my middle grade shelf and I pulled off the ones that I'm the most excited to read, and I have quite a few more on there. Some I feel guilty like I should read. This is kind of my month to get through as much middle grade as possible, and then a lot of which the stuff I don't get through, I think I'm just gonna get rid of before I move, which we'll see. Some stuff might come with, but I'm gonna try to read as much middle grade as possible while also being busy trying to get my house ready to sell and all that. So first up, Margaret Peterson Haddix. I really enjoy her books. This one is double identity. So what was this one? My only protection is a kindergarten teacher and a 98-pound female minister, and they don't even believe I'm in danger. As Bethany approaches her 13th birthday, her parents act more oddly than usual. Her mother cries constantly and her father barely lets Bethany out of his sight. Then one morning he hustles the entire family into the car, drives across several state lines, and leaves Bethany with an aunt she never knew existed. She has no idea what's going on. She can't find out because they won't say where they're going. Bethany's only clue is a few words she overheard her father tell her aunt. She doesn't know anything about Elizabeth. I mean, obviously there's something going on. As a kid, I always liked like Parent Trap and It Takes Two and that kind of thing. And the whole idea of like secret twins or like that kind of thing was always fun. So this totally appeals to my like younger self. A series my kids have been asking me to read for quite some time is the City Spies series. I'm pretty sure we own book 1 and 3. So book 1 is just called City Spies, and this is a bunch of preteen kids that, what is it? Sarah is a hacker. She recently broke into the New York City juvenile justice system to expose her foster parents as cheats and lawbreakers. Ooh. But then she goes to juvenile detention, banned from using computers, and her mother, a British spy who not only gets Sarah released from jail, but also offers her a chance to make a home for herself within a secret team of young MI6 agents. Right, so then we've got a couple different kids, and they all go by their names, their code names are place names. So we've got Brooklyn, Paris, Sydney, Kat, Rio, and it sounds fun. Also, really seems like it's something I would have liked when I was younger. And James Ponty, I don't know if that's how you say his name, he wrote the Dead City series, and I read book 1, I think possibly last middle grade March, and it was like about zombies, and it was so much fun and humorous. And so I feel like I'm gonna like this one. This is one of those books that's kind of embarrassing because I've definitely been saying I need to read it for a long time. Song for a Whale. Everyone has said good things about this. I'm aware I'm missing out. I don't know why. I just never pick it up. So I believe it's about a girl who is deaf and somehow she communicates with whale. I don't really know. This doesn't actually say anything on it, so all I know is I've heard amazing things and I keep not reading it. I have another Margaret Peterson Haddix. This is The House on the Gulf. This one is also a standalone. When Britt's older brother Bran lands a summer job house sitting in Florida, it seems like a great opportunity. Britt's family has just recently moved to Florida and could use the extra money while her mom finishes college. There's only one problem. Britt starts to suspect her family isn't supposed to be there. She starts poking around and makes a startling discovery. The owners of the house aren't who Bran says they are. So whose house are they living in? And why has Bran brought them here? Yeah. When was she writing books? Like, how did I miss out on her? 2004. So she was writing for middle grade, like when I was in high school. And so I just missed out on all her books. But these are like, these sound exactly what I would have liked at the age of 12. This one has intrigued me ever since. Well, first of all, I love this cover. And then I read the first sentence. This takes place in 1872. This originally I almost got rid of back in the day. I was judging books by, I think, their first sentences. Where it's set in New York City. Horace has been raised to believe in science and rationality, so as apprentice to Enoch Middleditch, a society photographer, he thinks of his trade as a scientific art. But when wealthy society matron Mrs. Frederick von Macht orders a photographic portrait, strange things begin to happen. Also sounds really interesting. So that one I would like to read. And then I just pulled this chunker off of my shelf. I believe this is middle grade, although the size kind of throws me off. This is the 13½ Lives of Captain Bluebear, and it's supposed to be very humorous, which, like, absurdity is not always my favorite, but this has like lots of pictures and different things going on throughout, so it is huge, but like lots of pages aren't full. My life as a mini pirate. So a blue bear has 27 lives. I shall recount 13½ of them in this book, but keep quiet about the rest, says the narrator of Walter Moore's epic adventure. I should be lying if I claimed that my first 13½ lives were uneventful. What about the mini pirates? What about the hobgoblins, the spider witch, the babbling billows, the troglodol troll? I don't know. And the mountain maggot. What about the venomous vampires, the gelatine prince from the 2364th dimension? Mine is a tale of mortal danger and eternal love, of hair's breadth last minute escapes. Okay, I don't know. This actually, I'm very curious because this sounds a lot like, oh, a brain map. It sounds a lot like something my son would really like. So I need to give it a try and pass it on to him if I think he'll like it. So I do have more middle grade books on my shelf, but if I were to pull them off right now, I would be lying if I said I was excited to read them. Right now, looking at the stack there, they feel more like things that I have to read or should read. And I'm trying to get through a lot of books because I want to get through a lot so that I can decide if I'm moving less. Right now, reading is all about the numbers because every book I read, I can decide if it's worth moving or if it's worth getting rid of. And the less books I have to move, the lighter everything is. So I'm trying to read books that excite me so I don't get into a reading slump. So that's what I'm excited about right now. In a couple weeks, that might change. I might pull off some other books. I might not read some of these books. That's just how my reading life is and probably always will be, but is especially so in this current state of life. So if you guys think I'm gonna love some of these books, let me know in the comments, because when you guys help hype books up, it makes me more excited to pick them up. And if you guys are reading a middle grade book for the Read Your Bookshelf Challenge, I would love to hear which book you're reading. So if you're doing 2 points of view or more than 2 points of view, let me know that and the book. I did mean or intend to come on and do a whole separate video giving recommendations for that for people of books that I have read, but life with moving, I'm going to talk more about this I think next week. I just don't have as much time, and so I'm trying to do what I can here, and so I never got that video out, but it would be really helpful for people in the comments if you would share them. And then also if all of a sudden someone mentions a dual point of view book that's middle grade, I might change which one I plan on reading for that. So thanks for listening to my TBR, listening to me ramble, and thanks so much for being here.